So where we left off in the last video, I was keeping my blue Mach 1 up at the airport in one of my parents' hangars, and I was living in an apartment at the time. And so I really liked that. I was able to go up there, do homework, use the internet, see the car, and take it out on dates with my wife and special occasions, and still daily drive my V6 Mustang. But my life was changing, and so was my family's. My parents were having to shut down the airport operation of the flight school they were running. Out of everything, the biggest problem was that the airport was scheduled to move across town to a new place, and they were going to charge huge amounts of money to move the hangars and to set up shop at the new place. So at that time, my dad was basically ready to retire and be done with it. He could still work in aviation and do things, but he was no longer going to have a flight school, which meant I would not have anywhere to keep my Mustang anymore. And so it was very nice that my in-laws decided to let me keep the Mach 1 at their house. And they had built an extra garage, and they had extra space, and my father-in-law at the time, before he had passed away, had a new Z71 and a camp trailer, and he had that all out in the next garage. So this spot became available, and he said that I was welcome to keep the Mach 1 there. And something I like about this was I was able to go up there and see the car, keep it under a cover, continue to enjoy it on a collector basis and not a daily driver. And when you look at this picture, you can see that the cover is off of the car. And the car cover on the Mach 1 always reminds me of when I was in high school. I remember going to AutoZone for auto shop class, and I remember we were able to leave the school sometimes, get some parts during school even though we really weren't allowed to go. And I remember looking on the shelf and seeing this. A car cover company had used a azure blue Mach 1 as the photo cover, and I thought that was really neat to see a blue Mach 1 like that, and I always remembered that through high school. And over the years I was finally able to find a picture of a box of one of those car covers, and of course there were several different sizes. It wasn't just for the Mach 1, it was just the car they used on the box. And so I thought that was so cool, and I remember seeing that in high school. I remember when I got to sit in a Mach 1 that was azure blue, brand new, at the GMC Buick dealership, and I was able to remember seeing these cars as they came out in the colors and everything. So after a long time of looking, I finally found somebody selling one of these on eBay, and I didn't even remember what brand it was. I just knew that there was a car cover company that used a blue Mach 1. And there's also one that used a blue bullet, and that's pretty cool because you can see the bullet brake calipers and spats on the side skirts, and just a few things that let you know that it's actually a bullet, and the grill being blacked out around the corral. But it's cool because I will end up having a blue Mach 1 and a blue bullet, and those two cars appear in a really cool issue of 5.0 Mustang magazine as well. So we'll talk about that as we introduce buying the bullet later. But one really cool thing was, speaking about the auto shop, I liked that class and I had my V6, but the teacher was really cool, and he let me bring my Mach 1 into the auto shop class and put it on the lift and get underneath it and look around. And I really enjoyed that because it's like going back in high school, only I have the car of my dreams, which was brand new back then, and I had done so much under the car detailing on jack stands that it was nice to get under the car, walk under it, and see how clean it is, and fine detail it some more. So I really like these pictures, and I'm glad that my brother took these pictures of me working underneath the Mach 1, and it's just fun to be there at the high school working on the car. So fun place to be. But getting back to keeping my car up at the in-laws garage and not having the hangar anymore, I was able to go up there every Sunday. We'd have dinner with them so I could go up and see the Mach 1, and we could have an excuse to go up there more. So when we would go visit family, I had my fun toy in the garage waiting for me, and it's very beautiful up there. This is one of my favorite pictures ever. This is a brand new bridge, and you might have seen my Bullet doing burnouts on this bridge later if you had watched the Bullet series, but this is just a really cool place to be and a nice place to drive around and enjoy the car and keep it. So these are some of the nicer pictures that I had taken of the Mach 1. This was my profile picture on the Mach 1 registry for a while, and I just enjoyed having the car stored up there and visiting. But I really did want to have my own house and my own garage. Of course, everybody does. And my wife was working really hard to help us find the right home. And she was more excited about it than I was because the car was taken care of at the time, but I did want a garage. I like this picture across the street of a stable. This is just right where my in-laws lived. They had this horse stable across the street that's torn down now, so it doesn't exist anymore. But I always thought it was cool to have a Mustang by a horse stable picture. So finally, my wife and I were able to buy our first home. And like I said, she was very interested in buying a home. I was still okay to wait for a little bit. It was 2011 or so, and so the home prices were very low. They were about as low as they were going to get before they started to increase in value again. But because of that 2008 financial crisis, now they were very, very strict on home loans, and that was something that I talked about in the first video about the car, that basically we had to jump through a lot of hoops to prove that we had good credit. I mean, we had a great credit score, but one of the best lines of credit we had was the Blue Mach 1, showing that we had good payment history on it. So they had told us that if it weren't for the Blue Mach 1, we might not have qualified for that first home. So that's something that I always remember and something fun to look back on when I see our first home and this nice garage that we had. So I was so happy now to have a garage for my Mach 1 and somewhere to keep it and enjoy it. And there would be probably over 100 Mustangs that would come to this house, whether they were ones I owned or the cars my friends had, that we would do a clutch on. We'd pull transmissions, we did engine swaps, a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, I have this little clip of when my Bullet Mustang was getting its engine swap done at this house and in this garage, and I had supercharged the car later here as well. This is jumping a little bit forward here, but I just thought this would be a good place to insert this video of the Mach 1 in the garage. And just a little side note is I love the Mach 1 so much, I didn't want to get into modifying it heavily and beating on it hard. I ran it and I'd race it and have fun with it, but that's what the Bullet Mustang ended up being, was the car that I could feel good about racing and modifying and having fun, so that this car could stay as a beautiful garage queen, which is how I liked it. So because of that, the Bullet would be heavily raced, and it unfortunately lost the engine at one point, and during all that, the Mach 1 was something that I had to rely on. I could go back and just say, doesn't matter what's happening with the Bullet right now, because at least I still have a perfect blue Mach 1 that runs perfect and everything's just great on it. It made it a lot easier to cope with the problems of losing an engine in the Bullet and everything. So here's that little clip. Okay, here's a little video of what's going on right now. There's my Mach 1 sitting beautifully as it does most of the time in the garage, running great. As for the Bullet, it is not running great. There's the Bullet's engine. Pre-detonation destroyed cylinder number 3 and piston number 3, blowing a chunk of piston 3 out. The rest of that shrapnel getting sucked through the valves. So we've got 2 TR36 transmissions here, Bullet's intake manifold, cold air intake off a GT, cold air intake off the Bullet, alternator, short throw shifter, pieces everywhere. There's part of the Bullet's intake manifold, the rest is over there. We've got the new MMR 600 block with Patriot Stage 2 heads and comp cams, all ready to drop into the Bullet. We have a donor engine from a Crown Victoria here, 94,000 miles on it out of a Crown Victoria police interceptor. It was a highway patrol car, and it's a very clean engine. One of the Bullet's wheels is here.
aluminum drive shaft and the stock intake manifold off the other Mustang. There's all the Crown Vic parts that I won't be using, flywheel and clutches for both cars. Come around here, the side of the house. Here's the Bullet as it sits, working on the suspension right now along with the engine. There's no engine in there or transmission. Poor car's been sitting like that for several days. Got an engine hoist. We got an old 4.6 liter that we've been using some parts off of. Got the stock radiator off the Bullet and all those pieces and belts and hoses, bolts to everything. Floor jack. Here's the donor car, 01 GT with only 58,000 miles on it, 56,000 miles on it. This is where the MMR engine and everything came out of. We'll be putting the stock engine back in this car. We've got its suspension torn apart as well because that's what I've been taking to put onto the Bullet. So here's some more suspension upgrades and tools everywhere. We got the hood to the GT over there. It's just kind of a mess right now. It looked worse when there was antifreeze spilled everywhere here and the engines were outside when we were rotating them and working on them. So that's a little bit about what's going on here.
So that's a little bit about the house and why it's important to me having somewhere to work on my cars, having a Mustang that I could race and modify, but that allowed this Blue Mach 1 to stay the garage queen and beautiful weekend warrior that it was, and it still is. That's how I continue to use it today. But I just loved having this Mach 1 as just peace and comfort of mind, knowing that no matter what happens, I still have this car that runs perfect and I can get in it and drive it and go do whatever I want in it, and it's going to last for me that way. So the Mach 1 was obviously in the garage the whole time, and the Lexus and the Bullet would kind of swap places. My V6 Mustang, which I later got rid of for the Bullet, but that's getting a little bit ahead of it. But you can see in the garage the engines that I was working on, swapping over and stuff. But the Blue Mach 1 was always there, and it was eye candy. It was just beautiful, and I just loved having it. Now, the first item of business, now that I was in my own home, not that it was something that I was waiting to be in the home for, but it took so long to find, was I wanted to get rid of these stock size GT headrests that came in my Mach 1 because it did not have the interior upgrade package, and I wanted to get a set of the nice IUP or interior upgrade package headrests. They're the 4-way. So these are 2-way, just up and down. The 4-way ones go up, down, and they tilt forward and back, and those are very hard to find. So obviously, as you can tell here, I did get a set of them, and it was really difficult to find them. I would look and look and look, and it was really hard to find because nobody's going to sell just the headrests. They'll sell the complete seats, and I would look and find a few Mach 1s that were totaled. One particularly, I believe it was in Colorado, it was T-boned so bad that the passenger side was crunched and destroyed, and it destroyed the passenger seat. But the headrest was okay. But I wanted to buy the set of headrests, and they didn't want to sell me both of them because they wanted the driver's seat to keep its headrest, which I understand. And so it became a really difficult thing to find a set of these headrests because the seats were part of the headrest. Nobody's going to separate the two. Now, some GTs came with these interior upgrade package headrests, and I have been actually very surprised in the last several years to see so many of these GTs with the larger headrests, and people tell me that they have them all the time, and I see them in their GTs, and I see so many of them for sale, so many of the GTs for sale that have the interior upgrade package. There was a screaming yellow GT here in town that had them, and I went to the dealership and I asked the guy if he'd trade me, and the salesman had no idea what I was asking or why, and he didn't want to do it. I thought about test driving the car and just swapping them because nobody would have known. but that's dishonest, and I know that that would not have gotten me anywhere in life to be such a dishonest person, even though it was tempting. And so I saw the guy who bought that GT, and I had him pull over once. I kind of waved him down when we were cruising next to each other. We pulled into the mall parking lot, and I asked him if I could buy the headrests, and I told him that they're special for the Mach 1 and that a lot of GTs don't come with them, and that his did, but if he wanted to trade, I'd give him $100 to trade. And he said, no, I think I really like these, which was kind of a lie because I knew he had no idea what they even were. And later that car got destroyed. It was just run down and beat up and ruined, and so it's really too bad that I couldn't have gotten those. But I looked and looked and looked everywhere, and so I saw one for sale, so I decided I might as well buy that one and hope to find another. So I bought it from Gaplin Ford, I think it is, in California. Super high volume dealership, very well known, and they had one in stock, and so I bought it from them off eBay. And when I got it, I realized that it was different. If you look closely on the left, this has kind of a bead stitching here, this big ugly bead, and it totally didn't match the French stitching. I had to learn all this because I had to figure out why one was different than the other. So they looked like they were the same, but they were actually different. And the bead stitching one came off of a V6 Mustang. So the V6 cars that had the interior upgrade package had the bead stitching, and then the V8 cars had the French stitching, or the Mach 1s, the Bullets, the Cobras for 2001 and later. And finally I found a guy in Las Vegas, which is about 2 hours away, who was selling a set of them, or he said he would at least sell me the set of them because he had a dark shadow gray Mach 1 with 20,000 miles, and he was redoing the interior completely with all custom stuff. And he said he would sell those headrests to me. And he was really nice, and I think he gave them to me for, I want to say it was like $100 for both of them, which was an incredible deal. And he said, I got into this on a really good deal, so I just want to pay it forward and I want to give you a good deal on these. So that was really nice of him. So I did get a set of these interior upgrade package headrests for my Mach 1, and they were out of a 20,000 mile Mach 1. So they're very nice, and I'm very happy. It was something that I really wanted to do. And no, I didn't have the rest of the interior upgrade package, like the silver trimmer on the radio and all that stuff, but that's okay. I could slowly get that later. So that will conclude this part about the Mustang Mach 1's story and what I did to it, and getting into my new house and getting the IUP headrests, which were a very big deal and still are a big deal to me today, which I think it's because I went without them. And so it's the things that you don't have that mean the most to you when you finally do get them. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next part of this story and for more Mustang content.